When James Hetfield turned 13, he was abandoned by his father. At 16, his mother died. When I look back, I get really mad. My dad just left without saying goodbye, and I hated him for that, said James in 2004. I thought, you screw us over. You left, took all the money, and my mom worried herself sick and eventually died. She was left hanging. Why? Since then, he has lived between contrasts. Part of his life dedicated to music, selling millions of records and filling stadiums with Metallica, and another part fighting against his feeling of abandonment, his addictions, and the death of his loved ones. According to the book Birth, School, Metallica, Death, James' mother Cynthia was an artist and graphic designer with a love of light opera and musical theater. She had had 2 children before remarrying James' father, Virgil Hetfield, who was a truck driver by trade with a modest haulage company of his own. During my childhood, I thought my life was normal. Now I realize that I was very isolated. Communication problems, insular and elitist because of our religion, are some of the words he chooses to describe the family. That belief was Christian Science.
You don't believe in doctors, you don't believe in dentists even, you don't believe in anything around health class or anything physical like that.
Part of the doctrine indicates that the power of God must be used to heal, and that power of God is contradictory to traditional medicine. James had to leave the classroom during health class. He would say in the 2010 documentary Absence, "You know when you're standing in the hallway, you're in trouble. Teachers are looking at you funny, but I'm out here because my parents gave me a little speech to say about our religion that I didn't believe or understand." As a child, James witnessed his father's disapproval of the belief of others. My dad would kind of roll his eyes and say, "No, we don't believe that." But when he would read from the Bible, he'd get teary-eyed, and it would be so emotional, and I would wonder, why don't I get any of that? What's wrong with me? Am I supposed to be like him? I wanted to learn about all things, and I wasn't allowed to do that. As James describes it, there was much room for improvement within the home. At age 9, James broke a rule. He went to his older brother's record collection. Music became a way to get away from my screw-up family, he said in an interview with Terry Gross in 2004. The concept of home that James' parents had built up collapsed when his father left. 13-year-old James did not get to say goodbye. He mentioned, "When I look back, I get really mad. My dad just left without saying goodbye. He left a note. It wasn't even to me, and I hated him for that." That note wasn't revealed to him until several weeks later when Cynthia told James and his younger sister that their father wasn't coming back and that he wasn't going on just another business trip.
And when I look back at it, I get really mad that my dad he left without saying goodbye.
That would bring James even closer to the only escape route he could find. I certainly started to close off the world and get very deep into music and let my feelings out through music. I would hear songs and understand that they're talking to me. They're communicating with me, said James. After almost a year of absence, Virgil Hetfield appeared. He looked different, had a new haircut, wore a different style, and drove a sports car. James said, "He was a midlife crisis dad. He brought gifts from Europe and Hawaii. My sister accepted him instantly, but I didn't."
Like my mom was passing away in front of us. There was no talk about it. The big white elephant in the room, no one wants to speak about it.
When James was 16 years old, his mother died of cancer. True to his doctrine, she did not receive treatment. "We just watched her wither away," said James. He also mentioned that his mother did not have a funeral, which deprived him of the necessary mourning.
After someone died, there was no funeral, there was no anything. It was just, they were gone. No grieving.
I had a couple of close friends, but not to the point where you could sit down and say, "Man, my mom died, and I feel like this." All that throughout high school, so I went straight to drinking. It was a big blur. I developed deep anger for my father once my mother passed away.
My father left. I was 13. My mother passed away. I was 16. I blamed him for that. I blamed him for my mom passing away.
Music would give him a new family and help him connect with other people through Metallica. He mentions, "My family fell apart, so I created my own family with the band." And then Cliff goes, That was another extremely tough time. I would say that Cliff Burton's passing reopened that whole wound of abandonment. Then I thought, it's better maybe not to put your heart out there. He went deeper himself and brought out not only guitar riffs, but also dark lyrics. He mentioned, after being clean and sober, going back and reading a lot of the lyrics are pretty intense. Dyer's Eve is a song about my parents and how they keep me in a cocoon. They were trying to keep me almost in a cult-type religion. Now that you are gone, I am out in the world, and I'm lost. I blame you.
Dear mother, dear father, what is this hell you put me through?
Now I realize that my parents did the best they can do, but when you're a kid, your parents are like God in a way. They can never do wrong. Terry Gross asked him in that interview, "Do you know what your father thought about that song?" "I don't know, and I didn't care. We didn't connect for a long time. I thought, you screw us over. You left, took all the money, and my mom worried herself sick and eventually died. She was left hanging. It also bothered me that he never taught me how to be a man, and I had to figure it out for myself at an age when I wasn't ready yet." James mentions that he once confronted him. I asked him one time, "Why do you think Mom died?" He jumped around the subject. I told him what I thought. "I thought she died because you left. She didn't know what to do. You're the breadwinner, and she doesn't know how to do it. I mean, she was an artist. She could go and paint and do stuff like that, but not enough to sustain your family."
I told him what I thought. I thought she died because you left.
After James' mother died, he would live with his older brother and eventually start working in a factory. It was the kind of job I could get for having long hair, he said. They told me, "One day you're going to be a foreman." And I thought, oh no, I have to make this music thing work for me. It's so weird saying this, but I tried to get close with my father again, get back together, and I bought him a house so I could visit him. Why did I do that? Why? Rocker guys, when they get money, they buy their parents the house they wanted. We go hunting together and do some things together, but it was never close.
I bought him a house. Am I supposed to do that? It didn't end great with my dad. He was sick. He had cancer as well. And,
Virgil Hetfield died of cancer in 1996. James' journey continues to this day. Earlier this year, during a concert in Brazil, he said, "I wasn't feeling very good before I came out here. I was feeling a little bit insecure, like I'm an old guy. I can't play anymore. So I talked to these guys. They hugged me and said, 'Hey, if you're struggling on stage, we've got your back.' And I tell you, it means the world to me. I am not alone, and neither are you." How did Megadeth go from being the quote-unquote political band on MTV to being completely banned? And then, how did they sneak back into that channel screen?